Hey,
Go ahead.
fucking, we're gonna go ahead and start recording. I pressed the start recording button because we're just gonna keep on talking. So, Dead Horses episode 5. Yeah, good enough. All right, we're live. Go. We'll talk about Bethesda.
Okay, anyways, let me go back to my previous point.
All right.
Basically, the idea that companies have manipulated their customers. Um, and I'm not saying they intentionally did it. I'm saying it's part of being human because being human is stupid.
Mm-hmm.
That people have these attachments to these brands, to these games, to this hobby,
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
it magic, be it miniatures, be it fucking online gaming,
Yeah.
be it whatever.
Stream,
We have
Twitch,
these
YouTube, all that good
attachments.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and when a company like WotC is doing, like Games Workshop is doing, and other companies are doing, they've taken a cue from the freemium model
Mm-hmm.
for online games, and they're at this point where it seems that they're more focused on the whales, and they're just gradual, not even gradually, but they're raising the prices incrementally, trying to find that sweet spot of, we're still getting the money from the whales, we're not getting it from like the plebs anymore, but that's okay because the whales are more than enough to keep us afloat.
Yeah.
And I find it funny that people have this attachment even when the company is doing the equivalent of like throwing them down a flight of stairs multiple times in a row.
Like the
Look at,
entire loot boxes thing, right?
yeah, loot box thing.
Yeah.
We Bethesda, Fallout 76 never should have made it to launch.
Yeah.
In the state that it launched, it never should have been launched. It had another year or two. But what it was designed to be was a quick asset flip
Mm-hmm.
to get the Fallout fanboys who, let's be honest, it's like fucking heroin to them. Oh
Mm-hmm.
my God, I got to get my fix.
Mm-hmm.
You know, who were going to buy it regardless if it literally was them taking a shit in a box and slapping the Fallout symbol on it,
Which they
the
pretty much
Fallout
did,
name,
to be fair. I
which is
mean,
what they
that's
did.
pretty much what they did. Yeah.
Look at how many times they've sold the same fucking Skyrim game over and over and over
You mean
again
Elder
because
Scrolls, but
these,
yes. Well, actually,
yeah,
no.
sorry,
Actually,
Elder
you do mean
Scrolls.
Skyrim because they've released Skyrim multiple times, and Elder Scrolls hasn't gone to the next level yet. It's just been Skyrim for like the last 5 or 6 years on different
Yeah,
consoles.
yeah.
So yeah, you're right. Oh man.
And I mean, they release it like the new special upgraded edition.
There was the VR edition that I actually
Yeah,
saw, and I got that as part of the pack-in with my PSVR. So I can do that again.
oh, but it's the idea that people, this. I love this company so much,
Hmm.
and I'm like, why? It doesn't love you. It's a
Right, right. It just
thing,
sees you as your
a
profit.
wallet with
Yeah, you're
legs.
exactly your wallet. You are that fry gift that I'll put in the recording later. Here, take all my money or whatever it is.
Yeah, and I remember some of the people saying like when 76 was, like obviously a fucking nightmare. It was a
Yeah.
disaster. It was a train wreck. Going, I'm still gonna buy the game because I'm hoping if I buy this game, then Bethesda will really make the game that I want to play. And I'm like, that's not how this works,
But
dumbass.
isn't that the same justification people use to stay in bad and abusive relationships?
Yes. I mean, there's a difference,
Bethesda
but
only
yes,
beats me because he loves me.
it's I can get them to change. No, you're not.
Oh God. Oh God.
That is what it comes down to. I can get them to change. If I show them that I am a true diehard fan,
If I
they
sacrifice
will.
this goat
Yes,
in
if I
front of my
sacrifice this
family,
goat, if I give them this money, if I give them my child, they will make
EA
the
will
game
be a
that I
good
want.
game company again. If it's EA, it's in the game.
Yeah, exactly. Let me know if that one fucking works out for you.
Oh, sweet
Um,
Jesus.
and I just find it weird. Like in the topic of or looking at Games Workshop.
Yeah.
Games Workshop for a long time, they were raising the prices on their models, and I understand it's a business, and profit, and I
Right,
get that.
right, right.
But it got to the point where they didn't even consider themselves, like they weren't referring to themselves as a miniature company. We sell boutique items. And that was their justification for jacking the prices up. Well,
Boutique, but not bespoke. Like we're still talking about mass-produced pewter-based miniatures,
not even
right?
pewter, man. Most of their shit's like resin or plastic.
Wait, what?
Yeah, they nobody does pewter anymore.
Man.
Very, very few people do pewter anymore.
Ugh, okay. Well, they still have to
If
go
you
back and
if
paint
you
them, right?
let me put it this way: if you are a small company, you're doing resin or pewter.
Well, yeah,
If you
we
are
also,
a large,
I guess you can do the 3D printing thing now too. That's an option.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it'll probably take another decade or two, but technology is getting better all the time.
Yeah.
But they Games Workshop recently, they've got their fantasy game system called the Age of Sigmar, and they recently released another army for it, which are basically mega giants. They're giants, but they're the
Even
giants
bigger.
giants.
They're giants to giants.
Each one of those models, and they're made out of plastic,
Mm-hmm.
$199.
Wait. How big are these models for
Let me
$199?
you know what? I will. New releases. They actually. God damn it!
This is all staying in, by the way.
No, I understand this.
I'll
I'm
put some
looking.
fun background music while. Position.
And if you look down, like where they've got like the different images, there's one with the Mega Gargant,
Yeah.
the regular giant, and then the human. The human is a 28 millimeter figure.
Oh wow. Okay.
So that Mega Gargant is selling for $195.
Wow.
$200 for an addition to your army.
So $200 for that drunk guy I saw at Ren Fair a few years ago.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm not saying it's a bad model. I'm saying
It's
I
not a
don't.
bad model. It's just wow, dude. $200?
They're at that point where they're pushing it to see how much they can get people to start, just chucking out. They've gotten back to that because they got into a bunch of trouble where a bunch of people left the game or left the Games Workshop hobbies because of really poorly written rules and the fact that the prices had gone just sky high and
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
And the CEO, Jack Kirby, I believe was his name. No, it wasn't Jack Kirby. Last name was Kirby for sure.
I was gonna say Jack Kirby is an animator, isn't he?
Yeah,
Anyway.
not Jack Kirby, but Kirby was the last name of the
Of the
CEO.
dude. Right.
Got ousted or left, and the new CEO like was turning the ship around, and everyone was like, "Oh my God, everything is so great again!" And they went back to Games Workshop in droves. And after a couple of years, the price raises are starting again.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just another example of, and there were plenty of people that I saw. I'm not happy about this, but I'm gonna get one for my army, and I'm like, well, then just shut up. Just your.
I'm not happy, but I'm gonna be a consumer whore about it.
Exactly.
That's fantastic. Also, correction: Jack Kirby was a comic books dude.
Jack. Okay, that's right.
So
Hold on.
I just want to be sure because like that name is on the tip of my tongue, and I've been reading or not reading, but watching a lot of classic X-Men stuff and different kind of retrospectives online about the X-Men.
It was Tom Kirby. Tom Kirby is his name.
Okay, yeah, because Jack Kirby was still floating around in my head from those previous.
Yeah, sorry. I yes.
It's okay. It happens, man. Wow. $200.
Yeah, and once again, I'm not saying it's a shitty model. I'm just
No,
saying
no,
that,
not at all.
at a certain point, yeah, I understand it's a hobby, and hobby is like disposable funds. It's
Right,
not like
right,
it's not a live or die thing. But
right.
there's part of me that goes, yeah, we're at that point where the hobby, like the people in charge of the hobby, or the companies in the hobby, this specific hobby and several others, are pretty much just looking at you like cash cows. You're no longer customers.
Right.
You're, how do we fleece these people of even more?
Mm,
And I find it funny that human psychology, just human nature, we form these attachments to these things and have a dilemma when
mm-hmm.
it comes to, where do I draw the line and say, yeah, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not going to give you any more money. This brand to me is just, persona non grata or
I
whatever,
know. Like when is enough enough? Because like I was thinking about that too. Because for $200, like that's a week or two of groceries for a
Yeah,
person.
that's four games,
Yeah, that's
like
four video games.
for video games.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us, no matter what our hobbies or our interests is, we get to a point where we're like, is this really worth it anymore?
Right, right. Well, I
You
was thinking
know?
about that too. Like even with my computer setup, there's a reason why I haven't gone full bore and respect in over 5 years because like this is still fine. I haven't outgrown this system yet, and I'm okay with it. Um,
Yeah.
it's not the biggest, baddest, but it does what I need it to do.
And if you're not like on the seat of your pants, cutting teeth, cutting edge gaming,
Hmm.
what the fuck does it matter?
Well, and I do think about what the next upgrade might be after this, and I kind of want to go full bore because I think I might have a chance to actually get my dream system for like the first time in my life. But then reality comes by and it's like, well, what if something breaks? Because being a homeowner, stuff can happen, and stuff has happened during
Yeah.
this nice little pandemic. So
Water heater breaking,
what?
fucking fuse box going
Just
out, all
random
sorts of
stuff.
shit.
Yeah, like all kinds
Yeah.
of stupid things can happen.
And you get to the, and it's not just, and it's funny how companies who don't own IPs but they're licensing them, like EA with Star Wars. Jesus
Oh,
fucking
right,
Christ!
right, right.
It doesn't matter how shitty their product is,
It's got that brand
because
recognition.
it's got a brand in it. They'll literally shit in a box, and people are like, it's Star Wars. You gotta have Star Wars. You gotta have Star Wars. It's Star Trek. Gotta have my Star Trek. Gotta have my Star Trek. No matter how bad the shows are,
I was gonna
no matter
say, I haven't watched
no
that in
matter
forever.
how bad things get, people are just like, I gotta have this. And there's part of me that looks at it and wonder and goes, is there just something wrong with me that I just haven't found the right thing where I'm just like, I gotta have? Like, look at guitars.
Yeah.
Gibson Gibson guitars gotten to a big financial problem because they started trying to diversify in ways that I don't think that they should have, or at least they weren't thinking of fully.
Hmm. They
Like,
didn't think it through.
buying. No, they didn't think it through, but they started. And I think the new CEO has kind of like dialed this back some.
Hmm.
But it's like, this year, Gibson, all of our guitars are going to be like, several $1,000s, and they're not really adding anything new, and quality control kind of went down, and it was just like, what the fuck, man? And you had some guys whose guitar heroes, played Gibson.
Yeah,
I've got to
yeah.
have this. I got to have this. It's Gibson. Oh my god! And I'm like, they're just fleecing you.
You're not getting
They're
your money
doing
for
the least amount of effort required to get your money.
that's what we were
And
trying to say. Like they're trying to min max us.
yeah, no, exactly.
They
That's exactly what
maximize
it
the
is.
hype and minimize the quality so
No,
that they can make as
exactly.
much profit off of us, man.
Exactly. And in many cases, like in the case of 76, it
Yeah,
wasn't even what's the term in the industry where it's not wasn't even the least viable product.
right. It was not an
It
MVP.
Yeah,
It's not a
it
minimum
wasn't.
viable product. Yeah,
It was literally just a gigantic piece of shit.
yeah. I mean, to be charitable, it was a playable alpha, but you don't bring an alpha to the market.
Well, Bethesda does, because Bethesda is a game
They
changer.
tried to protect. Game changer. I adore these stupid buzzwords. Like me and one of my other friends, we talk about how during the 90s, especially like 90s and early 2000s, whenever you were watching new things come out, different media and journalist folks would say it was a visual tour de force, and we
Yeah.
we could just go through and watch this same disingenuine copy pasta from all these professionally paid critics. It was a visual tour de force, dude. Come on, spin the wheel again. Shake the magic 8 ball and get a different set of words.
No, it got to the point where, like, with movies and shows, I wouldn't even pay attention to like critics or like, like hype ads,
Yeah, yeah.
because it was just like, did we watch the same thing? I mean, I understand that this is how you get paid, but god damn,
I know.
like, you don't expect anything, and that's kind of sad, you know?
Expectation, like, so here's another thing too, since we were talking about the dwindling quality of everything from tabletop to computer games and everything in between, is like, if we keep on as consumers buying into these substandard products, that brings user expectations lower and lower, so that
Hmm.
becomes normal, and then it becomes a financial incentive for these large companies to essentially give us unfinished products.
Yeah.
And because there's no repercussions for them being horrible, they can just continue to release these products that there's enough people of to buy, and it's almost like its own self-perpetuating excuse. And
Hmm.
people were like, well, I can play this on Twitch, I can play this online, and I can get a few views, and I can get a few lulls, maybe some of my friends or whatever. And then there's an ecosystem for bad quality things, and they're fine. I mean, I'm not saying that's, I guess it becomes a fact of life, right?
Yeah. Sooner or later, if you keep accepting it, it does become the standard,
Yeah, yeah.
and I mean, they've already we've already been conditioned to, like, oh well, these wear out in a couple of years, so you got to
Hmm.
get a new one.
Right. Where like it's almost like we're shifting the focus from the fandom thing where we had an attachment to a specific thing to just an amorphous attachment to a feeling.
Hmm.
And as long as you get something close to that, kind of like the comment I made before we started recording about how these gotcha games are becoming such a big deal, um, because people make enough money, they roll the virtual dice on getting whatever digital waifu they can to their squad of fighters or whatever, and that's good enough. Like it almost seems like, I mean, it is literally a Skinner box at that point. And if you can get enough people to buy into the Skinner box effect, you can make money off of them. Joys of capitalism.
Yeah, I mean, and at a certain while, at a certain point, you get really cynical, because you're just like, I understand that you like this thing, but don't you understand what exactly they're doing,
Right, you shouldn't,
here?
like my big thing, the big dead horse that I've been beating for years is you shouldn't reward bad behavior.
That is, I hate to say it, but America is founded on that idea, rewarding bad behavior. You know,
And that's how you get demonetized, ladies and gentlemen. No, anyway, let's go on.
but
We're not gonna make money off of this. Let's keep on talking shit. Let's do this.
yeah,
Let's
we're never going
round
to
it.
make money off of this. OBS decided they didn't, want our
Oh my
business.
god, that was horrible. But yeah, we're beyond that. We're stable now.
Yeah, we're stable now.
We're stable.
And it's just, it's just something that I've noticed about the hobbies for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the reasons why I've taken a step back, because I think in a lot of cases they are putting out substandard products because people will buy them,
Right.
and
And they'll buy
it
them in
gets to
mass.
no, they'll buy them in mass, and it gets to a
Yeah.
point where I not only just hate or dislike the company responsible, I start to dislike the people who are buying the product,
Right.
because I don't want to seem like I'm elite, but they either don't know any better or they don't care.
Well, for what it's worth,
I
you never come off as elite. That's not the first word that comes to mind when I think of you.
Pretentious asshole. Yes, but you understand what I'm
Oh
saying
yeah,
is
far too
I'm not
much. Far too
trying.
much.
It's one of these. It's like, look, it's not just the company. It's you fucking people who keep giving them money who are reinforcing this bad behavior.
Right. Right.
It's I have I have accepted that I am no longer the target audience for Star Wars, for Star Trek, for comics.
Mm.
they're not writing for me. And I'm not demanding that they do, but you know what? I'm not going to give them money because of an attachment that I used to have to those
You
things.
haven't be so you've resolved yourself to not be a lifelong fanboy.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because it's no longer fulfilling a need in me, and to those people that are continuing to shell out money to these, things that they were very fond of as children or at a certain point in their time and aren't getting the thing that they want, but will continue to purchase it and still complain about it. I'm like, what do you expect? That's like me giving you $5 every time you slap me. You're gonna slap me a lot, aren't you? And yet me continue to give you money and continue to complain about it. I'm like, what do you expect?
So, dude, I before we leave this topic, I've got to bring up the Sonic cycle, Sonic the
Oh
Hedgehog.
God.
Yeah, so about like as fans, we would always get our hopes up that the next Sonic game was going to be great, and it ended up we'd go through just this very predictable cycle of crap. I'm actually going to Google it so I can share it. The Sonic cycle. It was, and you know what happened eventually? Like they released that movie, the internet yelled at them, and then they fixed Sonic's face. But the Sonic cycle, uh, it's just so weird, and it's also sad because Sonic went all through all these different iterations where Sonic was actually pretty cool, and then Sonic turned into a nightmare, and it just be yeah. There are several Sonic cycles. Let me pick one of them and then try to full screen. Yeah, it's on Know Your Meme, so this is a pretty reputable source. Come here, Sonic cycle, 2009. Yeah, and this is definitely a dead horse topic because this is like from 10 years ago. Um, yeah, the Sonic cycle. Yeah. First new Sonic game, a lack of friends and screens. Hopes are raised. Fans begin to claim this as a Sonic triumphant return. And then more screenshots, pictures of friends, pictures of new friends. Gameplay looks to be the same old. Hopes hit the ground. And then the game's released. Reviewers slam it. It's a massive disappointment, and fans proclaim they will never be fooled again.
Right.
How could they have done this? We let them do it again. Underpants gnomes, man.
Mm-hmm.
Underpants gnomes. Oh, and there's an even better one. So a more updated Sonic cycle from Twitter. Um, the Sonic Team cycle. Here we are. So I will just leave this here, and I will post it in the notes. It's just never. Oh, what's that saying from The Simpsons? Stop, stop. He's already dead. Oh, oh Sonic, oh Sonic. All right, what do we want to talk about? What do we want to beat into the ground next?
You have. I mean, there's the Boeing 737, but I think we should wait for
Yeah, I definitely want to
her.
have that. We need to triple man that one.
We you do have the myth of the free press, and I think that's you.
I don't think I got a chance to watch this one, or did I?
Uh,
Let me just check. I may have it sometime, but it's been a while because stuff happened. Oh, this is when we were talking about. Well, you and I had that side conversation about yellow journalism and why yeah, we can probably freestyle this one. So, and this is a super dead horsey topic, but uh, yeah, the myth of a free and fair and just press. I mean, well, I don't want to say that the culprit was capitalism the whole time, but newspapers and the press in general have a financial motivation for existing. Uh, for the longest time, we've wanted the free press to represent the best virtues and the concerns of the public in general, and it did for a time. I mean, I'm sure it did at a time well before we existed, but here we are, where we've got 24-hour news and tabloids and fake news. Um, and we've got ads over everything. And but where did it start? That's the question.
you know, so this actually ties into the topic that I have above the link that I have above the Myth of a Free Press. I've got the ending
Oh,
gets
the
real.
Onion. Actually, that's a really good segue too. When the Onion actually starts feeling like a real newspaper.
Well, yeah, no, exactly. Or when the Onion starts calling out.
Oh, that's right.
Uh,
That was one where the Onion was calling out other
they called out.
platforms.
Yeah, they called out CNN for having a fucking article devoted to what Miley Cyrus did at the like music, like the VMAs or whatever, the Video Music Awards. Who gives a shit? You know, but the Onion broke it down. It's about that sweet ad money, you know, and that's what it comes down to, clicks. And you know, at a certain point, you know, I'm sure in the past that yes, you know, the idea of, you know, being a journalist and whatnot, you know, was more about bringing the truth. You know, the idea of news is about bringing the truth and investigating and showing a fair and impartial side.
Yeah.
But that is getting warped because you have networks, and I'm not going to name names, CNN, and others who, because they're more desperate for viewership, instead of showing a fair and impartial side, they show basically we don't want to offend anybody. So we're not going to say, we're not going to say anything inflammatory because there might be some, like, you know, Trump supporters who don't actually who actually watch our show. So we shouldn't say anything that might upset them. So instead of saying things like during the last election, not this current one, but the previous one, instead of saying things like, you know, accused rapist, accused molester Donald Trump, it was controversial Donald Trump. You know, no, he's not fucking controversial. I'm sorry. He's admitted to attacking women.
Yeah.
Enough women have claimed that he has attacked them that you have to start wondering where the fucking fire is.
But
you know, this whole thing about oh, he's got money, so women are going to make claims. You know what? I don't seem to remember, you know, like scores of women making claims that Jay-Z has assaulted them, you know, just for money. I don't remember. That isn't a thing that happens.
Right.
Even
it's
though
not spontaneous.
Exactly. Even though that the rich people responsible for bad behavior claim it is not something that happens in mass.
Right.
You know. So instead of actually saying what these people really are, or what the problem is, or what the actual issue is,
we dance on eggshells.
Yeah, we dance on eggshells because we don't want to upset anybody, and therefore, you know, cut into our advertising money.
That's true.
So what the fuck am I supposed to do for news?
Well, you could lean into it hardcore and then build an entire platform dedicated to keeping people separated. That sounds like a $1 billion idea right there.
You know, I think you might be onto something. Although, what are we going to use to separate them? It's on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah, maybe something related to identity. Maybe that'll never work.
We could go Mets fans, not Mets fans, or no, that's everybody hates the Mets. We could do it off of like the desserts that you like.
Oh, right, or like the
right.
listicles. Remember when listicles were such a big deal and like everybody started doing listicles? I don't care. I don't care which flavor of cherry pie I am.
Exactly.
Multiple flavors of cherry pie to begin with. Actually, what's a really good nonsensical thing? Remember when that blue dress, brown dress thing was around?
Yes, and everyone, yes.
All we're really trying to do is shame people that are colorblind.
Yeah. Or get one up on people, or start arguments and conversations about things that don't fucking matter, which is, you know, half the shit that you see on CNN or MSNBC or even Fox News.
Right. Most mainstream news, it's almost like the idea of a 24-hour news format might be lacking in substance.
Well,
because there's only so much you can report on.
Who could have foreseen that ever being a fucking problem? And here's the deal: if the news they wanted to report wasn't U.S. centric, then yes, there's shit that happens around the world every day, every hour, every minute that we could be reporting on,
Hmm.
but that takes money.
Oh, I was going to say that's what the BBC does, and it does take money, and
It does
and
take
they
a
have
lot of money.
you know, reporters all over the world, and they actually cover news internationally, um, which
Yes,
gives people
but the
context.
bugaboo there is the BBC is owned by the crown,
That's true, because
and
publicly funded resources might actually do a public service,
yeah,
mm,
um,
a public good.
so you get into these I remember like the previous election
Hmm.
where CNN wanted to make it look like a horse race because that gets people tuning in.
Oh, I remember. It was one of the earlier debates wherein they tried to make everything look like it was a sporting event, like the NBA draft or something. And they
Wow.
do all the different power graphics, and it got so bad that Andrew Yang just called them out right on camera about them trying to, you know, dress it up like it was a prize fight. It was just
Wow.
so nonsensical. I mean, this is literally we're just living Anchorman at this time.
No, because and part of it is a failure on us as a society as a whole. If I can't get my news in like 60 seconds, 15 seconds, it's just that's just too much. I've got to go watch American Gladiators, and yes, I realize I dated myself with that reference. Or I've got to watch the latest Housewives and who's backstabbing who and fucking whose
You
husband
know,
or whatever the fuck they
I've
do on
never
that
seen
show.
any of those Real
I
Housewife
I
shows
haven't either,
ever.
and I don't plan on it.
Neither
I'm
do
just
I,
making this shit up.
but I'm saying like but your scenario is not a fictional one. Like
No, it's not. And that's the worst part about it. I'm not I'm trying to be hyperbolic, but I'm not being hyperbolic because this is the shit that happens.
I know.
You know,
Like I thought
the,
about
the
that too with like another friend I was talking about. Like there are examples I can bring forth that I would want to hope are hyperbolic, but there are so many people doing these stupid things that even my attempt at being hyperbolic is invalid.
the fact that Florida man is a thing just shows that yes, you're right. Being hyperbolic is really hard in this day and age because shit that shouldn't happen does happen.
Like I think that's kind of where the Onion, you know, got into the weird pretzel of position they were in when they had to call out other media outlets for not being responsible media outlets.
Yeah,
And it's sad
you
when
know
the clown has to be the grown up voice in the room.
exactly. And it was really funny after Trump got elected. There was a period that lasted about a week or two,
Hmm.
and that I may be giving it too much time just because that happened several years ago, and we've all been in a
Time
state of
is weird
shock since
now.
then.
Yeah, time is weird right now,
But
especially.
like the heads of CNN and other news outlets kind of went, yeah, we probably shouldn't have covered it the way we did. And then after that 2 week period, oh, it
Hmm.
was all Hillary's fault. It was all the DNC's fault. This is not our fault. We had nothing to do with this. Because why admit fault, when your entire model is about making money? You don't say that making money is bad because that's what
No.
they were doing.
Well,
They could care less
hmm.
the actual damage being done
Right.
as long as they're making money.
Right.
You know,
Well, so there's that film I keep on bringing up in Discord, Harrison Bergeron, which of course is an adaptation of the same name short story from Kurt Vonnegut.
yeah.
And I don't know if you got a chance to either read the short story or see that film.
I've read the short story
Okay.
and I saw that version of that. I've seen that version
Okay.
years ago, like when it was on Showtime.
Yeah, yeah. Like
So
I saw that when I was a teenager, and it just really it's always stuck with me, and it led me into this idea that a post-apocalyptic world isn't necessarily one that's facilitated by war, but instead by a slow and steady social decay. And I thought it was really sad because towards the end of that movie, no spoilers for an old movie slash book story. Again, this is Dead Horses. um, and it's very much a Dead Horse story. But at the end, when you look at the people he tried to change, the people he tried to impact to take off their bands and stop being mediocre, he only affected a small percentage of people. Now, mind you, that small percentage of people was hundreds and thousands of people, but in comparison to the millions of placated masses, or as people like to say now, sheeple, um, there's not enough of a mind share there to facilitate a real large level change. But after what happened had happened, he had inadvertently or well intentionally created an underground of people that held on to the idea that people can be greater than the stupid, baying of the herd.
Hmm.
That if you actually thought for yourself and took your bands off for a little bit, you might actually have a thought of your own that was genuine.
Yeah, but I honestly think I honestly think that part of the message, or at least part of the message that I took away from that is being an independent thinker is scary.
Oh yeah, it should be
It
scary,
is,
and
and
it's
and
necessarily scary.
the people that just that elected to keep their bans on did it because they didn't want to be saddled with knowledge
The
and
weight of
sorrow,
responsibility. Yeah,
and the weight of responsibility, and we're much more happier being told who the bad guys were,
right,
what was acceptable thinking and what wasn't.
right. Instead of having to parse the data ourselves and having to come to a conclusion that required a critical thought process.
Yeah, and I mean, and the idea, and part of the idea behind Harrison Bergeron is the idea of like, what exactly is equality?
Yeah.
Like what does that mean?
Hmm.
And here's the deal. I'm never going to be the person you are, and vice versa. That you're
Right.
never going to be the same person as me. The
Right.
way I view equality is you have different talents than I do, and that's cool. That's the way the world works. That's
Hmm.
why society got to the point that it's at, because some people were good as leaders, some
Hmm.
people were good as thinkers and inventors, and other people were really good at like keeping society together and growing food and hunting.
Yeah.
We all have our specialties. The idea of equality is you should have the same chances as me.
Right.
You should be treated at the same level of respect that I have.
Yeah.
You know, um,
Your
but
humanity, your ability to exist shouldn't be called into question.
exactly. But that level of thinking
Hmm.
is much harder than no, we're all going to be the same. So for you people who are physically gifted, we're going to weigh you down.
Right.
For
Right.
you
Right.
people who are mentally gifted, we're going to shock your brains so
We're gonna
you're
make you.
dumb.
Yeah. We're gonna make everybody a C student.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That doing that, I think, is much easier than going the other route, because jealousy,
Hmm.
envy,
Hmm.
but also like, well, why is it that person's smarter than I am? Well, part of it may just be, yeah, the luck of the draw. The
Right.
universe said this person is going to be gifted in areas that you aren't,
Right.
and hard work can make up for some of it, but some of it is going to be just what you were born with,
So
what
what?
your
So
gift
what you're
is.
telling me is I'm never gonna be 7 feet tall.
Not unless you go through some really painful
You're a
surgeries.
terrorist.
Yes, I am a terrorist. Um,
Anyway.
but no, Harrison Bergeron is
Yeah.
this beautiful, beautiful story, and specifically that movie, I think, did a great job of highlighting what that story was basically trying to put forth.
Yeah,
What
I've
the
always liked that
message.
adaptation. Yeah, like that adaptation in particular always stuck with me, and it actually ties directly back to the media conversation we're having about bad bad faith arguments, bad news, yellow journalism, all these things, and it comes down ultimately, like so many things in life, it boils down to intent. What is it that people are actually intending to communicate? Are they just trying to grind people's gears so much that they can no longer have enough fuel to process a cogent thought? Are we better if we're just mushy minded consumers that will buy whatever's put in front of us?
Oh, that is definitely
Economically, yeah,
the capitalist wet dream.
yeah, economically,
And
if we are dumb, mealy mouthed consumers that are ready to throw our money at the next product, that's fantastic for markets.
oh, hell yeah. And there's part of me that goes, I think right now, for like, the news networks, their intent is to just have an audience that will tune into them for whatever, garbage that they're willing to spill out that day, to push out push out into the trough
Yeah.
for the feeding. Now to a Fox takes a different bent than the others,
Uh-huh.
and it's very profitable for Fox. But as we see, once you set something on fire, Yeah, you have a hard time controlling it because fire is a living thing. Well,
Yeah.
you know what I mean by that.
No, it takes more and more, and it consumes more and more. So it's
Yeah,
very hard to change the course back to something
and
more
and when
realistic.
it gets away from you, oh, you're in trouble.
Well,
And
it
that's
happened to the Republicans, like the entire QAnon thing, and which was completely predictable. But I liked that kind of turning point for the Republicans when John McCain had that moment at one of the town halls or an open
yeah,
Q&A where he had to talk down an old lady and tell her that Barack Obama isn't some Muslim or whatever conspiracy
yeah.
theory
No,
she
his
wants to
exact
claim.
phrase is like, she was like, he's a terrorist, he's a Muslim. He's
Right,
like, no,
right.
ma'am, no, ma'am.
Yeah,
He's like,
exactly.
we may disagree on some issues,
Hmm.
but he's a good family man,
Yeah. And he's an
and
American. He's an
and he's an
American-born
American.
American.
And I honestly think that's one of the reasons why McCain lost that election is because his base, the base that would have voted for him,
Hmm.
wanted what Donald Trump
Yeah,
what Donald Trump is.
exactly. They wanted blood. They didn't want brains.
Yeah, they didn't want compassion. They didn't want understanding.
Yeah,
What they want is someone they can blame for all of their ills.
right.
Someone they can blame for all of the choices that they have made.
They wanted a big hate pinata, and they got it.
Yeah. But I mean, there is also the argument to be made that a large portion of Trump's base, the people in the fucking, hills of West Virginia and Appalachia and
Hmm.
Tennessee and Kentucky that have voted for him, the South,
Hmm.
in rural areas, these are areas that got left behind by the change from an industrial society to this information society that we are.
Yeah, yeah,
They got left behind by capitalism.
right.
And there's part of me that does feel for them because, you've got people that are growing up in small towns that are never, ever going to recover the way things are right now.
Yeah,
It's going to take money. It's going to take projects. It's going to take ideas. It's going to take a job culture, and a job culture is not the right word,
well, I mean, it'll
but
take
it's
a
going
revolution. Like, it's not going to happen incrementally. It's going to take something really, really big to change
yeah,
dynamics.
you're going to have this idea of, what? Well, for an information society, we don't need call centers, let's send people home.
All of that. Yeah, or you can
Yeah,
do it remotely.
we've got to start coming up with these ideas so that these small towns can thrive again. But until that actually happens, you sitting in your small town screaming how there are no good jobs. Well, yes, and it's not because of some immigrant.
Hmm.
It's not because of some regulation.
Right.
It's because capitalism decided that it was cheaper to ship the factory that was the lifeblood of your town overseas.
Right. Right.
And think about that. Think about that. It was cheaper to ship your job to China, to build a factory and ship the job to China, and then ship the goods here on a boat across the Pacific fucking Ocean. It was cheaper for them to do that.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
This is what it comes down to. This is at the end of the day, this is the problem. This is how this works. Industrial societies only fucking function in a place where they have low wages.
Right.
Well, guess what? We don't have low wages in the US because we're a first world nation. So those industrial jobs went places. They went somewhere else because capitalism dictates that's what happens.
Right, because you're not going to make profit if you're paying your frontline people more money than you'll ever make in profit.
Exactly.
You can't make that
now
up.
there are I don't want to say edge cases. There are cases where you do have car plants here in the US.
Mm-hmm.
But those plants, like the last time
Saturn, or remember when Saturn was a thing?
Saturn was a thing.
Yeah.
I believe there's like a Nissan plant in the Georgia, or I want to say it's Georgia. I want to say there's a couple of like Japanese auto
there's
manufacturers.
Toyota here in Texas.
Toyota in Texas, like here in Clay Como, we have a Ford plant.
Yeah.
Well, Ford, and I'm not knocking the UAW, I'm not knocking the unions, but I am going to speak to this issue and say this is a problem that arises.
Yeah.
Not a problem. This is an issue that arises that capitalism is trying to answer. And the way it's trying to answer that is not really good because it doesn't really care about morality.
Morality is optional. Profits aren't.
Due to legacy costs,
Yeah.
American cars that are manufactured here in the U.S., you know, have their price tag is usually higher than vehicles made from other companies, other locales.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because they don't have those associated legacy costs.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to be a capitalist bastard and look at two cars, one's American, one's not, and the non-American car is cheaper because it doesn't have associated legacy costs.
Mm-hmm. You're not paying, Getty and everyone else's pensions.
Yeah. Then
Mike and the boys, you don't have to worry about them so much because if you can fire them, you don't have to worry about anything. Their family.
Well, no, and this is true, but there's part of me that goes, why would I pay for the Ford car when, I might have a limited income, I might have a budget, I've got to get this vehicle.
The real world constraints as a consumer.
The real world constraints, but then there's also the other point. Where is Joe and his buddies from Ford? Where do they spend their money? Because if it's at Walmart, they're not buying American.
No, they're not. Whatever happened to the idea of buying American anyway?
Well, the idea of buying American, and this is where I'm probably going to get hate mail if I actually got any mail. I heard that all the time at Ford, support America, buy American. And I'm like, well, here's the problem. Where do you spend your money? That's not any of your business. Yes, actually it is.
It kind of is.
Because if I'm going to support America, I need to know that the money that I'm putting, towards you, your paycheck, is actually going to be spent, supporting further American companies. Because if all I'm doing is giving you a check and allowing you to go to a place that does nothing but import goods from China, I'm not supporting America. I'm supporting you.
Right.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but there is a political party in this country that thinks that supporting individuals is a bad idea.
First, something first.
And
capitalism first.
And Ford is trying to answer that, by cutting costs. And how do we, and keep in mind, I haven't worked in the Ford plant in over, 15 years now, maybe more. But, what Ford was doing at that time is like, we're cutting people, or their security used to be in-house.
Yeah.
And because their security was in-house and it was union, it cost them a metric ton of money.
That sounds like a business opportunity, said the businessman as he shifted his tie and fired everybody and outsourced your job.
And that's what happened. And that's why I ended up working there.
Yeah.
And it was really funny, when representatives from the union for the security officers went to the UAW and said, hey, we could really use some help in these negotiations because this is what's happening.
Yeah.
The UAW realized why Ford was doing that. It was done to keep the plants open, to keep UAW members with their jobs. The UAW pretty much said, go fuck yourself. So remember, all of us are union, but some of us are more union than others. And that's where I get my kind of cynical attitude for it, because you'll be a union brother as long as it will fucking give you something, as it's a benefit to you.
Right.
But the second that your job is on the line, most union people are like, I'm sorry, who are you again?
So unions have always fascinated me because I've never really encountered unions, because in the tech sector in particular, it's so difficult for people, engineers, designers, everyone else that's ever been on a prod team, all the way down to tech support, all the way to the people that are literally sweeping the floors at Google. Whenever people try to unionize or make something, their jobs magically disappear.
I figured it was just because you people are socially inept, but okay.
What do you mean, you people? Anyway. Yeah,
But no,
so
it's
discipline, man.
amazing. It's amazing. Oh, it's amazing the amount of fucking circle jerking that the tech companies have done to
Right.
ensure that that never
Well,
happens.
they also spend a lot of their time working on their media image. So going back to kind of the reporting topic of all this, people are spending so much time manufacturing an image, manufacturing the optics, and just trying to massage public opinion. But when it comes down to the things they're actually doing for their workers, almost every benefit they give to workers ultimately benefits the employer more than it does the employee.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned this before, not on this podcast, but in real life, in the idea of unlimited time off. Oh, that's such a horrible dog whistle because all that really means is they don't have to pay you any severance when you leave because you don't have 2 weeks guaranteed vacation. You take your time off whenever. And of course, the unstated rules, if you take too much time off, don't expect to have a job because we're not in the EU. You're not going to get
Mm-hmm.
6 weeks of vacation. You can go fuck yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a developer, there's all this crunch. Like you've heard about this on all these high level AAA games where engineers are just losing their goddamn minds, sleeping under their fucking cubicles, and just so you can get the new Last of Us or Cedar Project Red title that's coming out, like that. But that's just normalized. They've normalized the abuse to the point where they make you feel bad for wanting to be treated like a human being.
Oh yeah. Well, because hey, man, this game has got to be out by this quarter because
Yeah,
we
you
got to
have
like
to.
cash in on that fucking
The
Christmas
holiday money.
money.
Yeah, you've got to make that
Yeah.
holiday money. Yeah.
And that's in part of that goes to the fucking consumers who, let's be honest, would stab a fucking engineer in the neck if that means they
Right.
get the next sequel of their game out on time.
I know.
Um, no, it's
But that
you
that goes
look
all
at
the way back to the first topic too, of like the entire the bad addiction of hobbies.
yeah.
Like the Sonic
Oh,
hype and everything else.
it is funny, you know, um, Bezos, the amount of money he's made
Oh
during this
God,
pandemic, the number of
he's
employees.
literally a trillionaire. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
the
wow.
the amount of the number of employees that got infected by COVID, the refusal to
Hmm.
actually
Didn't do
enact
anything about
safety
it.
measures,
Yeah.
and the fact that he's this beloved figure. The same thing
Right.
with Elon Musk and just him being a complete fucking jackass. But his media image is spotless because people love him. Same
Yeah.
thing with Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs, horrible fucking human being. Like he was a pretty shitty human being. When you find out how Apple and a bunch of the big tech companies had an agreement
Oh yeah.
not to hire from the other
Oh
companies,
yeah.
you know, so
It
you
was very much the good
basically
old boys club. Like Silicon
no,
Valley is just
it
the
was
good
a
old
good old
boys
boys
club.
club. So
Yeah.
you had people that were stuck where they weren't able to actually move forward because Apple and my company have like agreed not to hire from each other.
Right.
Well,
Right.
that's pretty fucking shitty.
Right. Well, it's
You
it's
know,
very it's very anti-worker.
it's incredibly anti-worker. It's incredibly it's anti-human.
Well, yeah, ultimately,
Fuck
because
you. You don't get to
you're
better
not you don't
yourself.
always have to be a
I
worker.
own you.
Exactly,
That's what it
exactly.
comes down to. I own you.
Yeah, yeah. Especially in the
You
early days,
know,
from like things that I would see in different articles I would read about people that were in Silicon Valley, because obviously I'm not old enough to have been there back then. But it's just sad because there wasn't really any other regulatory maneuvers to help anyone out. There was no regulation, and
and
there hardly is now. Yeah,
even now there's still no fucking regulation. Oh great, you whistleblow about that? Well, you're going to lose your fucking job, and more than likely the company that you blew the whistle on is going to have to pay a very small fee and a fine, and nothing's going to happen because the public has a memory like a fucking goldfish.
right. Because well, going back to the 24-hour news cycle, if you can give people enough or so much information that they can never latch on to and fully psychologically metabolize a story, they can't think about it intelligently,
Yeah,
and they'll
you
never have a
know,
real conversation.
and when you think about all the manipulation going on, like I saw there was a Nike ad
Mm.
that I had to like look at for my English course,
Hmm.
and it was
Wait,
calling
wait, wait. You speak English?
Niet.
Yet, yet, comrade.
Uh, um, it was a black and white Nike commercial because Nike does black and white very very well. I think it was
Hmm.
black and white. I'm pretty sure it was black and
High
white.
contrast, black and white.
High contrast black and white. Sorry. And basically, what it was doing, this was like after uh, Colin Kaepernick,
Yeah, Kaepernick. Yeah.
Kaepernick had basically gotten fired from the NFL because that's what happened. He got, basically barred for life.
Right.
And it was Nike basically, trying to capitalize on this whole be a rebel, even if it costs you everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting there having to critique this and basically show the appeals and the rhetoric and all these tools that it's using. I said, here's what it's trying to do. What Nike is trying to do is Nike is trying to humanize itself.
Right.
It isn't a human.
They're trying to sanitize
it doesn't
their image by association.
Yeah, no, exactly. They're trying to sanitize their image by association. Let's not talk about the sweatshops.
Sweatshops. Hey, that never happened. Yeah. That never happened.
That never happened. Let's forget about the people making our shoes for basically slave wages, because that's what they are.
Yeah. Wage slaves. The worst kind of wage slaves, because they're damn near like real slaves at that point. But anyway.
Exactly. I mean, hey, suicide nets. Those are everybody grew up with those in their home, right?
Remember, because suicide nets are so much cheaper than actual mental counseling.
Oh, exactly.
So much cheaper.
But it was trying to sanitize their image, but it was also trying to be on the right side of history. It's also trying to we stand with Colin Kaepernick, so you should buy our shoes. And I'm like, this is why I'm a cynical son of a bitch. Because once again, Nike isn't a person; it is a corporation.
Oh, but corporations are people too, right?
Fuck that. They don't have feelings. I'm sorry. Is Nike going to call me the morning after and make sure that I'm doing okay? No, they're not going to give a fuck. They're not even going to. Nike won't even slip me money to get an abortion. Okay, that's how shitty Nike is.
I mean, it's horrible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm picking on Nike, but every corporation is this way. All of these corporations that came out in support of Black Lives Matter. Well, there's part of me that goes, that's awesome. There's part of me that goes, you don't actually give a shit. The people that work for the company might. And I fully support that.
Like the workers.
Yeah, the workers. But the fact that these corporations are trying to cash in on a man's death and the systemic abuse of the police or abuse by police in this country is just like, what the fuck, man? It's
also part of the capitalist playbook, because if you keep doing that, if you keep on aligning to whatever the zeitgeist is, you could expect there to be a similar response if things went so far to the right that they would just be openly fascist and it'd be okay as long as it doesn't affect the bottom dollar. But it's also weird to have to say that whether regardless of intent, it seems that, at least in the US, companies have become the voice of morality, for lack of a better term, by actually letting people exist and forcing people to take sensitivity training, which I'm not saying that's effective per se, but
at least it's acknowledging that there's a problem. It's acknowledging that,
and also not while having to change their board of directors or people in leadership to actually include more women and people of color. Don't actually do material things that would actually help people that have been othered. Just make it look like you are.
Oh no, well yeah, because that's easier and cheaper.
It's so much easier. So much easier.
One of my friends, who's a couple years older than I am, was many years ago was a project manager for GM. But before she was a project manager for GM, she was just working as GM as a chemist.
Okay.
And I don't remember what her job title was at the time, but she was part of a group that was basically, part of a sales group that was, making a deal with a customer. Now, this happened long enough ago that after the deal was signed, it was like, we should go have lunch. And the client wanted to go to a strip club with a woman in group. And, I know that there are CEOs that have a misty eye for the good old days, that they could basically threaten to fire their secretary unless they got a blowjob.
Right.
But you know what? There's kind of a reason why that's unacceptable, because it's rape. It's sexual assault.
It's really scummy.
It's
Rudy Giuliani.
So the fact that they're actually addressing this, there's part of me that's like, well, it's a step in the right direction, but you're not actually doing the right things, because at the end of the day, an HR department isn't there to protect you. It's there to protect the company.
Exactly, which is why they still refer to it as human resources. Think about how institutionalized that language is. Human resources?
Yeah. Well, you're just a fucking cog in the machine. Get the fucking work, you cog. it's just really weird. I'm fully expecting, and I know this is a bit of hyperbole, but I'm like,
Well,
when
no,
is
it won't be hyperbole. Just give it
when
give it
is
a
when
moment.
is when is Cyberpunk and Shadowrun supposed to happen? When are we going to have the corporate wars? When
Arguably,
are
that's already happened. So here's another fun
Well, no, it
dead horse
has
topic.
happened because there have been times in our past.
When Ford tried to cut down a lot of rainforest and build a company town to get more rubber,
Yeah,
they ended up essentially falling on their face.
yeah.
Yeah, but there's other fun examples we'll probably bring up later. But yeah, the corporate wars that have already happened that we don't talk about because a lot of
There.
corporations have literally used the military to further their own expansion
Oh,
into markets.
God, there was a point where there were workers that were striking and
Yeah, and them getting shot at because their
shot
employers
at
were.
by the National Guard who
Yeah,
were given orders by the owner of the fucking company.
right. That was something that I
Something that
found
should
interesting
never
too.
happen.
Yeah, like things that should never happen have already happened. It's just
No,
they didn't get out. They didn't get. We didn't have a 24-hour news cycle back then. We didn't have
well, we didn't have
hashtag.
a 24, and let's be honest, CNN wouldn't cover shit like that.
Probably
Or
not.
not in any way that would actually lay blame on the
So,
corporations.
dude, here's something I did want to bring up, and I will try to be as delicate about this as I can because it involves one of our friends. Um, and we talked about this offline before too. So we have a shared friend in Chile, and in conversations that we've had, she had intimated to us that a large American company had a bunch of its stores burned down. That's a story that has yet to come up in U.S. news. It's super weird that no one talks about that, although it's a very well-known story in Chile. Hey,
Yeah,
you know,
we we've and there's part of me that goes, yes, it's kind of weird, but there's part of me that because Trump is such a polarizing figure,
mhm.
that is where the money's at.
Right.
The fact,
That's where all the eyeballs go because you can't
no,
tell the
that's where they
opposite
all.
narrative.
And I'm going to say, and this is where I'm going to sound a little racist.
Go for it.
And that's not my intention, but this is how they're viewing it. This is the lens that they're viewing it.
Right. So this is for instructional purposes only.
Yeah, for instructional purposes only. My casual racism. I'm going to hell for saying that. Okay, so a bunch of people who speak Spanish in South America burned down some America stores. Woo. We have scary black people in this country that are burning stores down, apparently, according to the news cycle, and white people. And we've got a president, who is literally burning the country down to the ground.
Yeah.
So casting Black Lives Matter and the wild zany shit that the president says in and out of the debates gets more advertising dollars than the fact that people in Chile during a protest, because I believe that's when it happened.
Yeah, that was during the protests.
Burnt down American stores because they're not happy with a lot of things. Not just with their own government, but with the way we've been goat fucking things there too. Because let's be honest, the goat fucking has been allowed to happen because we've allowed it.
Right. In fact, there were a lot of state-sanctioned goat fuckings that had happened, which is what brought Pinochet and his regime and everything else. But hey, that's for another episode.
Yeah, and once again, it's the fact that this is the way that people look at it. Oh, I'm sorry, that happened in South America. That's so far away. That's people who I speak English. They speak Spanish, so therefore that doesn't concern me.
Right.
Because here in America, we're in a box, and nothing ever affects outside of the box or from outside inside the box. We live in a fucking bubble.
Like viruses can't make it into this country because we've got walls.
Dude, I
It's also too much nuance to tell people that the actual strain that ended up infecting most of the U.S. didn't come in through China; it came in through Europe. But hey, who's counting? Go on.
So, I've been looking at tiny homes lately, and there's quite a few tiny homes groups on Facebook, and there was a lady who made a post talking about how there's, in Ecuador, there is a lake that has basically been that a bunch of expats have set up shop with their tiny homes.
Yeah.
Kind of all parceled out for, plots, et cetera.
Kind of like a little commune.
Yeah, kind of like a little commune. And the lady who was basically advertising, it was like, if you want to get away from the woo flu, because, casual racism at its best.
Right.
And the violent Black Lives Matter rioters, endangering our lives. And I'm like, okay, All right. And she just kept going on. And somebody actually called her out. And the level of just willful ignorance, she's like, I'm not racist. My husband's Latino. And I'm like, oh, of course not. Because,
Yes, Karen. Thank you. Thank you
and
so
it,
much.
it was just and she's like, I'm already living there, in Ecuador in this tiny home commune. She's advertising it.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, it's a great place. And I'm like, the fact that you were in another country, and completely oblivious to the shit that you're saying. And I'm like, yeah, you might not be racist, but I guarantee you that all the people that you interact with think you're probably fucking racist.
Or all of them are as well. And this is
No.
kind of the thing where people don't like to consider nuance, and they don't really stop to think about what they're saying. And she's probably been in a situation like the Missouri conversation we had before we started recording, wherein you could have these social dog whistles or dog claps. And you can say these things, and you see how people in the group respond to essentially ask, as you put it, what type of white guy are you?
Yeah.
And if there are people in your group that never question those types of conversations, it just becomes nothing. It's just a part of the static in the background. It becomes flavor commentary effectively, and nobody stops to think of the dehumanizing effects it causes to, well, general discourse, actual minorities, your life, your sanity, your basic dignity.
No. And this is very true. It's like, the whole thing in Chile that, we were just talking about. I remember when the protests in Chile first started more than a year ago.
Yeah.
Actually, it was about a year ago.
Yeah.
And when it was finally covered in American news, most people are like, wow, a fare hike of like a couple of pennies. That's fucking stupid to protest over.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, those silly Spanish speaking people or whatever that,
Right.
their
Whatever
names for them.
diminutive yeah.
Yeah. And it was like, you don't understand. This is just the cherry on top of the systemic just bullshit the government has been throwing at them.
Right.
And not only that, to American sense is a lot more there than it is here.
Right, especially for students that
especially
don't have
for
any
students.
money to get around to begin with.
Exactly, and for people who who are on the bottom rungs of society or on pensions or whatever, But the fact that you just went, oh, those silly foreigners, ha ha ha, it's like Jesus fucking Christ. Have some idea that the world is more than the experience at your local fucking Starbucks.
But that's not marketable, though. As I guess as we end up, that's one of the horses that we beat is that if you're looking at things through American eyes only, you realize that the rest of the world is really just there for you to exploit. That's the general.
Jesus, man, I have not gotten the right memos. God, I could have invaded a country by now.
Why haven't
Jesus,
you?
what have I been doing with my life?
Hustle hard, yo. Hustle hard.
But no, that's right.
Grind.
Everyone is here to exploit. The idea of like all these expats. Oh, we go here because it's so cheap and I'm able to afford a maid. And I'm like, you're exploiting people. You are literally exploiting people. I understand you don't think that way, but you are.
Right.
You're going to a country that has, that allows you to live like a king.
Mm-hmm.
Which I guess is really what the modern middle class in America, or the boomer, I'd say the boomer retiree class really, really wants, is to live like kings and just step on everybody because
without consequence.
Without consequence, because that's what our foreign policy was doing while they were growing up. So they think it's just normal. People are supposed to bow to Americans because we're so goddamn awesome.
Well, what I always like is how Americans will. I'm speaking as an immigrant, of course. Like I adored the fact that Americans will go to your country and then treat you like you're the foreigner.
Yeah,
that's the dumbest shit in the world.
Although to be fair, we got that trick from the British.
Yes,
because we did learn that from the British.
That's how colonialism happens. Kind of like that old that 80s drug PSA or 90s drug PSA. Why did you start? Why do you do that? Well, I learned it from watching you.
It's like it's some of our best or worst habits, depending upon which side of the
whether you're sitting at the table or being served at the table, or being the server that has to bring those things out. It's all about that.
We learned some of our best tricks from Britain.
Yeah.
The idea. That when 9/11 happened, people are shocked. We haven't done anything to them. And I'm
Oh
like,
my
are you fucking
god. Oh my
stupid?
god. I adore this conversation because
They just hate us because of our values. No,
no, they
we
hate us.
actually,
No, people were saying they hate us because of our freedom. That
yeah,
was
our
my
freedom.
favorite.
I'm
That was
like,
my favorite stupid thing to hear during that time.
and I'm like, you do realize we've done some pretty shitty things in that part of the world, right?
Not to
And
justify the indiscriminate killing of thousands, but yeah, there's another side to this story.
yeah, there's a book called Wretched of the Earth, or there's another word for it. I think it's called like the Black Book of the Revolution. That basically was written, I believe, by a North African who really the book should just be titled "What Whitey Did to Us and why we should be able to get back at them." And it basically is talking about all of the horrible atrocities that occurred during colonialism. And the thing is yeah, we don't technically practice colonialism anymore, but a lot of those same practices are still used by capitalism.
Right. I was
going
say,
into
it's not colonialism per se, but it's corporate colonialism.
it's corporate colonialism.
Yeah.
And to back up that corporate colonialism, the first world still uses its armies, still uses bribes, still uses puppets.
Yeah.
The fact
As
that you don't the fact that you don't understand or can't even conceive in a world that we're not the good guys. Like this whole and this is where, I absolutely hated what the Obama administration did, changing the definition of civilian casualties when it comes to using drones. Yeah. That was bullshit.
Yeah, that's pretty horrible.
Oh, I'm sorry. There was an 11-year-old boy there. He was probably fucking part of the movie.
There was an
11-year-old boy there. He was obviously a terrorist.
Yeah.
He was kicking a soccer ball. Obviously a terrorist.
He's a terrorist soccer ball.
The fact that that's where we're at. And that we've normalized killing people who probably had nothing to do with it to get one target. That we've okayed that in our fucking little reptile brains. And are completely oblivious to the idea, at least the citizenry, the civilians, the population, the masses are completely oblivious to the idea that this is going to come back to haunt us. I'm sure that the military is at least going, I'm sure that they have figured out an algorithm that, if there are 20 people that we kill at this, in a drone strike,
in one conflict,
and only one terrorist, 19 people who were not terrorists, how many relatives of those 19 people are actually going to become terrorists? So that's actually I'm sure that algorithm has been figured out.
Well, it has. So there's a lot of things you have to consider, and this is going to turn into a classified conversation eventually, but I'm not going to get into it. We'll have this as a roundtable topic that we get a chance to talk to when my other friend gets out, but probably sometime in 2021. So,
am I going to get a visit from men in black suits and dark glasses?
Well,
I'll be honest. If Dan Aykroyd and Belushi show up at my fucking door, I'll be okay with that.
If it's Blues Brothers time, hey, just get a selfie. Just get this one selfie, and then if I never see you again, it'll totally make sense.
It will totally make sense.
But I'm just saying, these are the fireside conversations that I want to have, and that I was able to have during the ceremony that Faith and I had, back when the world was still normal. But these are topics.
Last year.
Yeah, last
year. Let's focus on that.
Year.
It was last fucking year.
It was last goddamn year. But yeah, this isn't reality anymore, man.
No,
I'm not even gonna. I'm not gonna cut my hair anymore. And when November starts, the No Shave November thing might turn into a No Shave 2021. I don't know. Shit.
No, I only shave when my beard gets to the point where it's affecting my mask.
Yeah.
So then I'll just trim it all the way down.
I haven't worn a mask with my beard out because I do stop shaving in November for the entire men's health thing. But there's going to be a few more firsts for me to go through, along with everybody else.
Yeah, I don't even get Brazilians done anymore. I mean,
know,
Jesus
right?
Christ!
Like I never get my screen time. There's just pop and get off. It doesn't even matter anymore.
Exactly.
We've got more buses to bang. Anyway.
Exactly. But no, it's the fact that the American public doesn't think or even entertain the notion that our drone strikes, our specific attitudes towards drone strikes, and our implementation of them are going to lead to problems for us down the road.
Right. Like there's not going to be any what's the nice term, that there won't be any collateral damage from the actions we take today. Somehow we'll go through all of these things, and decades later we won't have aroused any negative karma. It's fine. Don't think
Yeah.
about it.
And the only reason why there's quote unquote no collateral damage is because we've changed the definition of collateral damage and civilian casualties. We're making the assumption that anyone old enough to hold a gun who's a casualty is obviously a bad guy. You know? And like I said, and like I would love to have this discussion with you, and I know who you're talking about. I would love to have this discussion with him. And I know what he does, and it's not to attack him, but it's part of me that goes, at any point, what I really want to know is at any point, what did the brass say to the president, the
people in leadership?
The people, the civilian leadership, and saying, you do realize, I want to know, was there a point where they said, you do realize somewhere down the road we've projected, or we think, we know that this is going to be a problem, that X amount of people are going to be radicalized because of the actions we're about to take?
Or is this just a risk that we accept? Because it's not going to be our sons and daughters that die. It's going to be these people that don't have
and we're betting that we're going to prevent the next 9/11 or the next big event in the U.S. You know, I'm genuinely curious about that. You know,
it's weird because I think about events in the U.S. It's very strange to me that there is a willful blindness to domestic terrorist groups.
Yeah.
Like they've killed a lot more people over the years than happened in 9/11.
Those are white people. It's sanctioned state killing. and I'm only half kidding when I say that.
I know. Yeah.
I'm sorry. What's his nuts? The Ratner, the kid who killed two people and injured another one.
In Kenosha, yeah.
Yeah, in Kenosha. How much money got fucking raised? The fact that he's being lauded as a hero, the fact that his mother and father were at a Republican speaking event and they got a standing ovation.
That might tell you all you need to know right there.
If that's not state-sponsored killing, I don't know what the fuck is.
Well, you know, that'll be an interesting thing for me to think about, because I can't pinpoint something in the past where something that audacious and ignorant has happened.
I'm sorry. When McVeigh blew up fucking the Fed building in Oklahoma City, people weren't
cheering him on.
They weren't cheering
that much.
You know, when there were those IEDs, because that's what they essentially were. IEDs were planted in the Atlanta Olympics.
Oh, right, the pipe bombs. Yeah.
The pipe bombs. Yeah. Nobody was fucking cheering.
Right.
When you have right to life assholes planting pipe bombs at abortion clinics and then setting up additional pipe bombs that are set up to go off when responders show up.
Oh, I know. That's
nobody fucking applauded. And it wasn't until the current asshole got into office as president that all of a sudden state-sanctioned killings and murders and shootings became a thing.
At least at this level.
At this level.
Yeah. Well, on that point, too, I do have to call time because we've only got about 3 minutes left, because that's what happens when you're beating dead horses. Just one.
This is true. We can't beat just one. You know, like a lollipop.
Lollipop. Ooh,
like a rectal. Oh,
lollipop.
Did
Best
you?
Song ever, man. Best theme song.
By the way, I don't know if I told you about this. Did I? So, Games Workshop a couple of days ago released their next
like product catalog, or
not product catalog. So they several years ago came out with a holder that you hold in your hand, kind of like you can use like a pill bottle.
Okay.
And this is roughly the size of the one that they currently have. And there were basically a slot up here at the top that you could pull out and place minis in. So you could hold it while you paint and rotate it while you paint.
Oh, so like a little platform.
Like a little platform.
Okay.
A few days ago, they released a new one, or they showed images of their new one. and the internet had a field day with it.
Oh boy.
I'm
Is this
gonna
how we're
see
gonna
if
take? Is this gonna be the closing credits of today's show?
it might actually be if I can get this to fucking work.
Okay.
Let's see. Will that actually? God damn it! No, that will not. How do I do this?
I don't know. Internet it.
I'm trying. Okay, I'll see. I wanted to get the Photoshop version, but
Was this on Reddit or was it on Twitter?
I want to say it was on Twitter. Hold on.
Self-add stupid music here. I'll fix it post.
I can't. I will have to like dig and find it, but
I can fix it post.
it made a. I'm just gonna come out and say it. It looked like an anal plug. Like no bullshit. And like within minutes of somebody actually showing like them actually debuting it or showing a teaser of the image with a miniature on top, somebody had basically taken that image, a picture of a fucking anal plug, and go, I don't see the difference here. That image was up on like their Facebook or wherever they were showing this teaser image for like a day or two, and they took it down. And all I can think is that was like some dude who had one foot out the door, was like his final finger to the company, just like, fuck you.
Yeah.
I'm really hoping somebody gets fired over that, because how could you not see the similarities? just
But if it got to your eyes, that means it had to have gone through at least a few layers of actual human beings before
this
it made
is
it to
very
the open internet. You know?
This is very, very true. You know, as one friend put it, you know, maybe they designed this for couples that want to share more hobby time together. You know, just pop it in somebody while they're watching TV, and you just paint.
That brings new meaning to the phrase hobby horse. And with that is probably the best way we can stop today's episode.
Yes.
Just so everybody out there, get on your hobby horses, and we'll see you next time. I'm going to stop recording.